Why would anyone want to fall in love with hand stitching in 2025? Especially taking adventures in slow stitching, the craze that's going around the world right now. Slow stitching and hand stitching are basically the same thing. The philosophy of slow stitching has a specific theme, and that is to stitch in the moment, to enjoy the moment, to keep a sense of well-being, tranquility in mind, that the stitching is the focal point, not the destination. Of course, just plain hand stitching, you are focused on your destination. You're usually making something specific. But why fall in love with hand sewing this year? Well, see if you agree with me. 2025, the crisis in the world is not getting any better. Items to craft with, to create with, are not getting any cheaper. Anxiety, depression, economic problems, relationship problems, none of them are getting any better. The world is in chaos. The world leaders don't know the way out. It's war and terrorism on every front. Natural disasters everywhere. We live in critical times, and they're hard to deal with. So 2025 is a wonderful year to fall in love with hand stitching. Why? Because hand stitching does do several of the things that slow stitching teaches us. It teaches us to slow down. It teaches us to do something with our hands, to feel moments when we may be alone, when we may be anxious, when we just have a need to create something beautiful in our lives. We can have time to meditate and to think on positive things. We can use our skills, our talents, and our ability to design. And we all are designers. We all have that ability. And we all, unless we're disabled some way, can handle a needle and thread. Also, because hand stitching, slow stitching projects can all be done with scraps. In fact, if you take the time to look around my channel, you will find that 95% of all my projects are done with scraps. You'll also find that 95% of those scraps are thrifted, are gifted, are found in my own closets and drawers. I get them at resale shops, yard sales, estate sales. You can find in other parts of the world in, I believe, what you call op shops. It's a cheap way to be able to create, because we are recycling what normally would go in the trash. And so if you have friends and family, tell them, no, don't throw away that blouse, don't throw away that, don't throw away that. Put it in a bag, I'll pick it up. And then you cut it up and make beautiful things out of it. Everything that I create here, almost, is totally scraps. And so it fills a need. This love of hand stitching fills a need, and we all have that need, every single one of us, no matter of our age, our circumstances, where we live in the world. We have the need to be happy. And hand stitching and creating beautiful things for our own environment can make us very happy. Let me show you just a couple of examples. Here on my desk is a piece of, it's a scrap of a home decor fabric that came out of one of those big books that you look through to pick out your upholstery fabric and stuff like that. And if you'll notice, it has the paper backing. So, if you find one of these books, you can go and even go to stores that are selling fabrics for home decor and ask them what they do with their sample books, and could you buy one when they're finished with them. You get a bunch of fabric. Sometimes they'll give them to you, and sometimes you just pay a little bit for them. If you have factories that make clothing in your area, ask them if you can collect from their remnant pile or their scrap pile or whatever they're going to throw out. Sometimes they'll let you do that. We had a formal factory that made evening gowns here some years ago, and they put all their scraps in a bin, and you could come and buy a sack that they would give you for $1, and everything you could get in that sack you could take home, and it was a big sack. So that was fun too. But anyway, the point is there's ways to get the things you need, and a needle and thread isn't overwhelmingly expensive. So look for that. But these little samples here these are small little clusters that I'm going to slow stitch, hand stitch, and they are made up of scraps, as you can see. Little scraps that are just layered on, and all kinds of scraps. This is an old curtain panel, very loose woven. Makes a nice background. It's soft, but yet it's durable enough to hold things together. When I get it sewn, then I can fringe out the edges, and that will look pretty. Old buttons that you rescue off of fabrics. Little pieces that you sew together in little clusters. Here's a little cluster, and there's a little cluster under there. Little cluster right here. Okay. Just put together, here's one here. One here. Just little things that I could put on something and make an item. Now, you could take the small ones, add it to a bigger piece of fabric, sew that on as an element onto your fabric as you're collaging other fabrics, and you have just beautiful little things. If you're a paper person and you junk journal or scrapbook, you have lots of scrap pieces of paper. This is a little tiny envelope made from a scrap piece of paper. Okay. And yes, you can combine your paper with your fabric. You can put a needle through paper. You can sew through paper. It's not a problem. Little doodads that you might pick up or come off of other things, or a lot of times you will find them at thrift shops. People buy stuff and they don't use it, and then you end up with it. And so every little tiny thing, this selvage edge that would have been thrown off of the fabric, it makes a really cute color statement right there. There's just so many things that you can do. So start small, build little clusters first, then go a little bigger, and then decide what do I want to do now. Lay out a little bigger collage type thing, then add a cluster on top and sew it in as a decorative embellishment, however you want to design that. And let me show you something else that's a finished project that is made entirely with scraps. And I have a whole playlist for this. But this is my snippet tree small wall quilt hanging. Okay. It's not very large. It's very doable. Let me tell you. Let me measure it here for you. It's a little over 18 inches. And by 13 by 18 inches. Okay. Every bit of it is scraps. Okay. You can see that the little snippet pieces are just small cuts. Take just leftover remnants and then cut them down into like little squares or rectangles or a triangle here and there. And then collage them together. I've sewn them down and I put some sequins on them. I use some different little pieces of scrap yarns here. The 4 trees are just all made that way. I just changed the trunk and the little ground element up on them. Okay. Then I couched some yarn and sewed on some leaves on that. Okay. Now my sashing is just scrappy trim that I make myself on offcuts of batting, odd little cuts. I just put the snippets on there, line them up. I put a layer of tulle over the top and I sew it down. And then it makes a beautiful little scrappy sashing. Okay. So there is all kinds of things you can do. But the point is that it has a positive impact on our lives. Now, I'm 78. Right now, I'm confined to sitting in this chair because I have 2 slip discs in my lower back. Next Monday, I'm having a procedure where I'm hopefully going to get a steroid shot in that area of my back that will help me get out of pain so that I can move around, because I cannot walk or stand for any length of time. But because I can sit and hand stitch, because I can concentrate on designing something beautiful for my home, I'm happy. I'm not depressed. I'm not constantly thinking about that my back is hurting or my leg is hurting. So it's such a positive impact. If you're alone, if you're older and you're lonely, this is the best companionship in the world. You'll just fall in love with your needles and your thread. You'll fall in love with your scraps like never before. In fact, you have to be very, very careful that you don't end up cutting up all the clothes in your closet just to get new fabric. You do have to use self-control when it comes to that. Believe me, you do. And it's just so wonderful that you can also create things to gift to people. You know how sometimes we want to give things, but we just don't have the money. And but we have the time a lot of times. And if we have these elements, we can do that. Okay. Another element that I'm working on, and I haven't finished, is my little owl wall hanging. I'm going to be sashing that and putting a quilt binding on that. And it would be a small wall hanging. And then on a recent video, I am showing you how I finished a junk journal soft cover. Okay. Got a pocket here, a pocket there. Just made out of an old skirt, some fringe off of a scarf. These are all remnant scrap pieces that I put together in a design as a flower. Look at how pretty that turned out. Isn't that just wild? If you have a friend whose scrapbooks are junk journals, wouldn't they love to have a gift like that? And it's all doable because you took the time to fall in love with hand stitching in 2025. Let me show you a couple of more things that you can do if you'll just take the time to have this romantic relationship with fabric and needle. Look at this adorable little needle case. Isn't it darling? All scraps and hand sewn. Just adorable. Just so pretty. Just bunches of little scraps, just layered up, just collaged in no crazy way. I tried to kind of make it look like a landscape. And that's either a moon or a sun, I don't know, whatever you want it to be. And then the heels that come in. Okay. It doesn't have to make a lot of perfect sense. It just has to be pretty to you. And here's another one. That's more like a modern art type thing. Isn't that pretty? Just love that. Just look at that. Just bits and pieces of scraps. Scrap thread just wound up there, scrap yarns. Open it up. Has a little pocket. Has a little slip through. Plus you can put your needles in here and these because they're padded. And another little slip through to hold something. Just adorable projects for yourself, for your home, for your friends. These are so cute laid around your home. And how can you get up and be depressed when you have things like this to look at, to pick up, to touch, to hold? You just can't. The fact is, it inspires you to make another one and another one. I'm telling you, you're going to have a romantic affair with hand stitching if you just begin in 2025. So, as everyone here knows, my wish for you and for me is that we all stay very scrap happy.